Bo du den de de jin shaban da jong ba yang da bar zo be sang ge ri ba da sha zu den ba be or she ba ji den kem ba ge bu du e ka lo yu ro la na me ba da me nam ge dam ba sang ge jong de de be ge wa sha ya du ba la cha zo lo cha do ja zo je Dum den den de jin shaba ra jong ba yang da bar zo be sang ye ri ba na sha zu den ba de wor che wan chi den gen ba ki u du be ka lo yu ro la na me ba la na me na ge tum ba sang ye jom den de be je wa sha ga du ba la cha ze lo che do ja zo che dum ba jong den de jin shaba ra jong ba yang da bar zo be sang ye ri ba da sha zu den ba de wor che ba ji den gen ba ki u du be ka lo yu ro la na me ba la da me na ge dum ba sang ye jom de de be ke wa sha ga zu ba la cho dum bo cho do ma ja zo je ma de ga ne zo wo ke tam ze sa xian de la gong ba dum bo ne ma ne ji de de na cho je zong de de ke ba ke la de lo na da gu ma cho de zi zang wa yi xi ge ze se ge hong bo zha zha ba ji de sam na la de wo gong bo ju ni ge la sha de lo sen xiu de ba de me da wei sha se do ra wa ge la sha de lo dun zhe gen zha si ba su ma ji nyang mei kin xin ge la sha de lo gong bo tu ji qi dian pa tam ji ken bei dong bo bo so nang yun den ya su xin de xin xe la cha se lo da bei de jia zhe wa yu ge wei nian zong le zhe xin ji du dun dang shu gi ri ba xi gi ri xe la cha se lo zhuo ne zhuo wei lang yang dun la ban da la ro du ne xin ye dang ba yin den de gen dun la yang cha se lo de ba jiang me jia xin ke wo kun zun so ba ri ge rang ge se ne yang zi nu ne ne sang ge den ba yin karma ra ri ma me dang gyu ma se ba chu hu ri zang mi lang lo dang ten ta bu de xie xue nan de da ri da so nan de tam je se ba yi ko ba to ne gen gen ra de de Gadan nadan shive la chule sive solim roa chule sho. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Rata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one God, the thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a frame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from some samsara's ocean, perturbed by ways of aging, sickness, and death. Jula cha zelo nige da ge se ba di chi na jom den de gya pu ka ja pu pum bo re long ge gen de chen bo da jon ju sen be gen de chen bo da ta ji de ju de se jom den de za mo na wa chi ja we chu ji nam ga ne ting e zen la nyong ba shu zo yan de jon ju sen ba chen bo ba chen re se wan chu she ra ge ba ro de chen ba za mo che ba ta jing bong bong ma bo te da la yang ra jing ge dong ba ra nang ba ra da wo san ge ge tu se dang den ba sha re bu chang ju sen ba chen bo ba chen re se wan ju la ti ge che me so ri ge bu gang la she ra ge ba ru de chen ba sa mu che ba te ba de ji da la ba ra cha de ge de chang ju sen ba chen bo ba chen re se wan ju ge se dang den ba sha ra da de bu la de ge che me so ri ge bu an ri ge bu mo gang la she ra ge ba ru de chen ba sa mu che ba te ba di da re nam ba re ta wa re cha de de da la yang ra shi ge dong ba re nam ba re yang da ba re che su ta o zu dong ba o dong ba ni zu zo so le dong ba ni xie ma yin dong ba ni le yang zu xie ma yin nang de yin de su wa dang de xie dang nam ba re xie ba na dong ba o tam che dong ba ni de si ni me ma ga ba chi ma me ba chi ma dang shi wa me ba dang wa me ba wu yu sha ri bu de da wen na dong ba ni la su me tsor wa me de shi me de che me nam bar she ba me na wa me na me she me lu me yi me su me ja me ri me ro me tre ja me sho me do me gi ga me ba ne Number shipe kamge bardu yame no mari pa se pa me pa ne kaji me kaji sebe bardu yame don te jindu don wa dan kunju wa dan ko pa dan lame yi shi me to pa me ma do pa yame do shari pu de da we na jan ju sen pa na to pa me be shir shira ge baru du jen pa la ten ten ne de sam la te pa me ji cha pa me de je je lo le shin du de de nyang ye le de be tar shin du zong du nam pa shu be sang ye dang je kyang je ra ge baru du jen pa la ten ne la na me pa yang da bar zo be chang ju du mo bar zo ge zo de da we shira ge baru du jen be nga ri ba jen du nga la na me be nga me nyam ba da nyam be nga dong ge tam che ra du shi war shi be nga mi zu be na de ba shi ba sha de shi ra ge ba ru du shi be nga me ba aya ta ga de ba ra sang ga de bu de so Shari bu jan du san ba de da shi ra ge ba ru du jan ba la Oh, do dene chum de tenge tele tenge chanju samba chambo baba chene de wanchu la lekto de jawa chene lekto rigi hu de chino de jinde chedara juje temba shindu shira ke baru de jamba samola chebar chate de jin chava nam gyan je tu yira mo chum de ge che ka tsel tsedan demba shada da de budan janju zenba jung baba chere ze wanchu dan de be koru de da dan pa dan mi dan la ma yin dan ji ze che pe ji de ye ran de jum de ge zomba la ngom de Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhyan, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, "How should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhyan?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, "O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhyan should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold of the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as the truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. Gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
Oye, tan la dana jutzila, sa ima ga na jutzila sa. So dan tan na jutzila sa de. Kama so kobulu to suma si se ba na migewa de tunge ku tishin ye to tamje to. Gele te to tamje te jawa ko to ya da ne sta kandar. Nan chu mo to sna na da nan so. Okay, ta kobulu to na shin chena na to ikbar migewa. Ani yawas 이제 아니 미국의 제보도 동해제 예외 제보도 야was 건 한번에 봐 대세 짱마짱냐 수행 송신도 계속 왔어.
The lesson in the Dharma on Sundays resumes here now, and we begin with the illustrious Nagarjuna, who elucidated how it is from non-virtues come every last pain, and from virtues perfect well-being. Just as Nagarjuna has made so clear, there are these two, virtues and non-virtues. The result, consequence of non-virtue are pains. The result, consequence of virtues are well-being. And this is made perfectly clear.
Oye, 근데 인도 상관한도 안다르다 동해다 대화승이다. 안제 거기 규개와 주바이나 제부 대화 규미개와 주바이나 제부 동해스 하고 안다르 고불 저기 그런 게 차관님도 시험에 또 송화 인도 대단한 아주 당아랑도 미세 수수기 니만이 냠래나와 다 수수기 내가 가르쳐 있는 개와 지투와 있는 아니 당아 대화 소리야 당기 니만이 미세나 제부 그게 주티고 제바이나 아니 제부 동의 후유바디 다 아까를 고춘이 차대요. 그래서
So it is then, these are indicated, pain and pleasure. Pleasure as the result and consequence of virtues. Pain is the result and consequence of non-virtue. And Nagarjuna saw all and indicated it is so. And each of us in our lives, in our daily practice, insofar as we do further virtue, find the consequence in our experience of contentment. And when it is the case that we are not virtuous and engage in non-virtues, then the experience of pain that results comes naturally so.
우리 이제 좀 당하는 또 미세나가 그 개와 두고래 유티버디 방고래 사냐면 이게 하고 두고요래 그래서 이제 좀 당하는 또 그거가 레기 남샤스게 지난 하장 동반지게 남샤래 레기게 남샤 하장 야쳐 사바 어떻게 차대 그래서 레 사보들도 만족이 무유 말 고유로와 그래서 먼저 원도 유튜브 말에 고유인데 먼저 원도 유튜브 말에 이나야다 하다를 직사제 수백의 롱 아니지 펜디다도 수백다 공부를 하시니 아니 맞아 로전체 또는 제발라 때는 내가 안 좋다 지금 되게 수많은 신이 제일 예외 줘라 나투야 이게 저한테 빵투야 근데 그 다음에 돈을 맞았어 이만 냐면 자꾸 요래 손
Then it is for us in our lives for us to adopt virtues and to reject non-virtues. And that rejection of non-virtues is the very beginning of dharma. Karmic causality, the accumulation of karmas, is compared to emptiness much more profound and deep, the comprehension of it requiring much greater breadth. Karmic causality is to us mostly hidden phenomena. We are not able to see and observe the workings directly. We rely upon the Buddha's scripture and the commentary of the pundits. And this is our support, and we study this. And so it is said then that we would adopt virtues and reject non-virtues, and each day then this precisely is what we would do.
근데 이제 좀 말한도 다들 레 미개와 제외기 레 그것들 이만 말한도 고승부 제바디 미개와 제바 니모 온도 쇼 아니 미개와 제발을 때네 그리고 안들었다 이거 동해 용거를 세야겠다 동해 용거에 제도디 아니 다들 레 미개와 되게 왕기 아니 그 다들 되게 봐 치마니야 손을 펴봐 제가 아니 레 미개와 지기요 아니 그냥 손을 깨버쳐 그냥 손을 깨잖아 아니 동해 왜 하자는 잡고 유르고 되게 용고 열어 세다가 동해 되게 용 먹어야 다는 또래 미개에 온 게다 아들 탐방에 손 패기래 아니 손을 펴잖아 동해 옛날로 치러 와고 어떻게 되래 손
Non-virtues accumulated daily, physically, verbally, and mentally. These non-virtuous karmas, which arise by the force of afflicted minds, themselves cause their consequence pain. This is the reason then we acknowledge that propelled by non-virtuous karmas, births are precipitated in hells. When a birth occurs for us in hell, then immediately we experience the repercussion in intolerable pain in hell. Then non-virtuous karmas propel us into hell. There we experience the painful consequences.
le migyo asmedi ta le migyo sridamba ta le migyo na ta rig mangbo shujo ta le phanga shuk chijung ani ta mangbo yo ta le bana ma ta le gyewa ta migyo as ni chetar cheyo ta le migyo ti ki tu dungere te gyewa dungen yongsa ki lude di ka bangres na nge song la ki gere nge song ke na dungen tre yogres che chikse ta le gyewa de la ya ma gyewa le gyewa de la ya le le malo na se niche le saje le ane same le de ure eso
Non-virtuous karmas are of many kinds, depending on intensity. For instance, we've already distinguished between overall two forms of karmas, virtuous karmas and non-virtuous karmas. Those non-virtuous karmas, with their consequence pain, project the physical body into hell. So that for the non-virtuous karmas. Regarding virtuous karmas, these two are two kinds: contaminated virtuous karmas and uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
뭐 le saje digi 내가 비트부 되어 찌기 내가 비트부 되어 걸 함을 하다 미고 한 코바시디 뭐 되어 투도 공 차그래 이나양 거기 되어디 아니 되어 템보메 다고 유어도 거 남식이야 그 동네지 뭐를 줄 야고 레고는 이모디 원기 한다를 야 코안이 이제 게임에 손을 깨야 동네 영화 치기로 하시다 고 내가 되어 짐바를 때 이내 때도 되어 지 투여 말에 오 된대기 진행되라 내 사제스 아 체대 직접으로 해서
Contaminated virtuous karmas bring about only temporary well-being, the temporary well-being found in heavenly realms and in human rebirth. These result from contaminated virtuous karmas. The contentment is not long-lasting. When transmigration comes, meeting with conditions that are afflicted minds, then again, births are precipitated in samsara, in the hell realms. The contentment that comes from contaminated virtuous karmas is only temporary. So the division within virtuous karmas into contaminated virtuous karmas and uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
아주 차샤와이나 le momatiki le yawa saje sabala tene ala kale milule ani ya tando pe yar pa kobi wa suwa zupra le saje ti go cheba reso
Take us then, for example, and how it is for us in our paths. Contaminated virtuous karmas have brought about the opportunity of a human birth wherein our situation may be further improved, but the occasion of the human birth for us is the result of contaminated virtuous karmas.
le same singe digi ko pran chin ko le kem go andar pe ko le tarba chegi le zupra le same ti reso
Regarding uncontaminated virtuous karmas, these require no further birth in samsara. They are cause for liberation from samsara. Those are uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
다 이제 이제 다 말아도 이만님의 수수 단단하게 내다 될라 삼로 땅에 내 겨와 싸고래 내 뒤가 빵고래스 이 내가 치 먼저 그 대세는 내가 더 먼저 거시 전에 뒤 제대로 내 겨와 죽거나 내 겨울 두 개의 같이 두고 그랬으나 다 두는데 대세 시시 좋아지 아니 꿀뭉체 아니 무시체 아니 죽 어디 시 사회 관리 아니 겨와 지도지 그러나 아니 겨와 야구 차이를 해서
So, okay, then for us each day, it would be for us to evaluate our situation and see that here we choose to adopt virtues and to reject non-virtues. The division has been made. We've made an opening in this way. Then for virtues, how would they be accomplished? And they are accomplished through 4 features that would be complete in any action: the preparation, the refined intention, the actualization, and the conclusion. When these 4 are complete, then any virtue will be sound, in fact.
나도 빅벌 차시라고 있나 만화도 니만 빅벌치든 다 단다 방법 좋아다 꿀lun다 무시다 죽셀 상황 통보치라 이거 세상 먼저 빅벌 단다 단대내 땅 먼저 빅벌 또 채워 겨워도 또 충만이요 이 요거에 기지디 단다 좋아 꿀lun 무시 저 죽숨도 이 빅벌 먼저 빅벌치디 이 창결을 먼저 여와시도 이제 참 하고요. 제가 먼저 이거 또 채워요. 여와 또 충어요. 뜻이 네 얘기가 그래서
And for us, each day in our activities, the ease with which we accumulate non-virtuous karmas follows from the ease with which we complete each of these components of any action: the preparation, the intention, the actualization, and the conclusion. All of these come about naturally and easily in cases of non-virtues. And for this reason, then, our propensity for non-virtues is greater than our propensity for any virtue. For these 4 aspects of any action are always complete for us in non-virtuous cases, and seldom ever complete for us in virtuous cases. For this reason, then, our propensity toward non-virtue.
세상 어떤 때는 이거 진주 제가 있나요? 제 이거 진주로 저기 여러 대 있나요? 또 전부 잘 차고에 균세디 가르쳐 버렸으나 안도 조시리 상고 조와지 꿀lun지 무시시 죽숨과 상황인다 또 전부 차서 다시 또 전부 차로 이 개와 초들은 좋았다. 지시가 상해야 지라 먼저 셈나 봄이 여마로 봄에서 지가 상황 지라 깔래 가고 있어. 제가 어떤 충을 여기 와서
And take any non-virtuous karma, albeit a small one, it becomes of great significance because all 4 features of an action, the preparation, the intention, the actualization, and the conclusion of it, will be inevitably, naturally present in non-virtuous instances of action. But seldom is it so that in virtuous cases, all 4 are present. They usually are not all 4 present. And for this reason, then, our virtues are comparatively weak.
뭐야? 제가 때리다 개와 듣고 또 충어 여가 이제 가서 완전 개와 지겨도 다 가다 가시를 좋아야 보이죠. 그냥 꿀lun 마상도 가시를 꿀lun 좋아다 꿀lun 야고 연나야 무실은 야고랑 매죠. 나 좋아다 무시 꿀lun 야고 연나야 죽이 고아 매죠. 대제 먼저 저 코드 시간만 상황인데 좋아도 꿀lun도 무시 시간만 상황 아니 겨와디 겨와 또 전부 차 두고 말했어. 이 시간 상황이나 딱뭐 겨와 차상지 차또 전부 차다. 그래서 상황 차되었어. 재산 뒤도 아니 맞은 겨와디 아니 또 충아. 이거 봐. 저 규칙도 이 차이가 그래서
The virtuous impulse that is weaker by comparison is weaker for the reason that, take some instance of a virtuous action. For some individual, it will be natural to prepare for the virtuous action and to have refined their intention along with the action. But then the 2 additional components of the action, the actualization and the conclusion, are absent. or for another, the preparation and the intention and the actualization are all present, yet lacking still is any conclusion. So long as all four of these required, so long as any of these four are missing in an action, it will not be as strong an action as it could be. And so then we wish for these four features of any action to be present, but when they are not, it is the very reason that our inclination toward virtue is comparatively weak.
아니 신주체에 따라 좋아 무시 꿀롱 쭉 상도 야보다 야만은 꿀롱 상금 말에 야만은 무시 상금 말에 야만은 좋아 뭐 상금 말 제가 들리 마상인데 그것도 전부 차 두고 말이야.
Then daily in physical, verbal, and mental activities, re-examine what you take to be a major event of virtue and great significance. We might think ordinarily, oh, I did right here, and this was indeed very virtuous of me. But then look to see whether, in fact, the preparation and the refined intention and the full actualization and then the conclusion and review are all present in this instance of virtue, and find that either the preparation is inadequate or the refined intention is missing, or the full actualization is missing, or the conclusion is. And so long as any of these are absent, then the full strength of the virtue is not fulfilled.
삼루다나 이거 디고 춘주 이 삼대요. 수 삼배나 디고 춘주만 삼에 삼대 여러 때 있는 디고디 그 춘주 차량 전부 차또 전부 가르쳐 좋아하다 보는 것이 쭉 상계로 상은 뭐 라시 또 전부 차도 세상 디고 춘주 이 삼교 될라야 그 전부 차 보야 돼. 좋아 보는 것이 상황이다. 또 전부 차. 여와 또 전부 이 삼교 될라 또 친구 마셔야 돼. 저 굴rum무시 차단하고 막 상황인다. 또 좀 쉬어두고 제가 딱 간다. 왜 한게 겨워 지겨도 또 처음부터 전부 주차 마셔. 이것도 전부 주차 마셔서 해야 돼. 딱 간다. 저 굴rum무시 시가 여고 상계도나 하고 당신 또 전부 자야 돼. 뒷마상 또 충분 차려요. 네 근세들이 하고 싶어. 다시 한번 해서
And if we examine a non-virtuous action, and how it will likely be the case that we'll think, oh, it was minor anyway. Oh, it was trivial anyway. It's just a small thing in any case. And when in fact it is very consequential, why is it consequential when we think to ourselves, oh, it is only minor? And the reason is, naturally, all four of these features of the action will click right into place. In non-virtuous instances, there will be the preparation and the intention and the actualization and the conclusion. These will all follow and do not or seldom do in virtuous cases. And we will nevertheless think to ourselves, oh, this is of great significance, virtuous, and of great significance, while in actuality, the preparation or the intention or the actualization or the conclusion will be wanting. And so then when we look to see, are we behaving virtuously or non-virtuously, and what is the measure of that virtue and non-virtue, we would find the framework here in the preliminary preparation and in the intention and the actualization and the conclusion. And when all four of these are present, then the action will be of great significance. So consider this carefully.
거의 다 이제 계속 이마저는 겨치기 요같이 겨치기 요같이 저 보는 것이 되게 하고 상황이 지도해야 돼. 다냐네 내가 차원 와서 어디 치고랬어. 이걸로 삼는 땅을 말해. 그러면서 배워도 뭐 다른 상주를 제가 이거는 또 피해요. 제가 먼저 이것도 피해요나 아니 먼저 경험을 한 사람 먼저 치면 이렇게 엄마도 같이 용의 양도 그냥 손내를 fon도 제가 경험을 한 사람 했어. 어디 시작이야? 해서
that we do daily in virtuous activities complete each instance of virtue with these four features of full preparation and refined intention and actualization and finally conclusion, so that all are always present, and to strive to make all four features ever present in virtuous activity is a critical point in spiritual practice. Whereas the non-virtues, because of our familiarity with non-virtuous activities, are naturally always complete in these four features. And for that reason too, then the loss for us that results from non-virtuous actions is all but guaranteed, that we will find ourselves delivered into hell by the reason that these four features of non-virtuous action always fall right into place for us.
딱 디지털로 좀 장가제 시도 좋아서 볼롱도 무시다 쭉 장가 시제 소화다 디제도 좀 다 좋아서 좀 좋아가지고 좋아 최초 이나는 막 이거 이런 거 저게 최초 있잖아요. 그다음 차상 상대요. 좋아도 오면 소리 저게 최초 상품도나 아니 좋아도 차상이나 뒤뒤어 해서
These four preliminaries, refined intention, actualization, and the conclusion. These are the four, aren't they? And in the six preliminary rites, we find all that is contained in any preparation contained in these six preliminary rites, and there will be nothing left out. So then the six preliminary rites embrace our preliminary in these four.
아니 뭐 꿀ung도 시다 개심 꿀ung도 빼마서 개심 뭐 꿀ung 빼래 나세 유익 꿀ung다 뒤주 꿀ung 이치를 이나는 유익 꿀ung데 저도 냐네 치고 치투고 해서
Followed by the refined intention, extraordinarily significant. That refined intention may be divided into two kinds: the causal intention, the causal refined intention, and the temporal intention.
뭐였으나 꿀ung TV 다만 저기 빼는 당기 수수기 돼야게 자와지 그 돼야게 자와이나자 아니 자와 걸리지 뭐 있나요? 다 하고 꿀ung 걸어 꿀ung 되면은 아니 진도 걸로 되게 말해 아니 제일 대좀 사그래 아니 제일 남 노벌 레그와 그다 디주가가 세야라야 해치고도 하고 꿀ung 그 해치부터 해서
In the causal intention, for any person with any plan at all, whatever it might be, whether it's to travel or to do something else, the intention is indispensable. Without the intention, there can be no inclination, no desire to do the given thing, or there will be an ambivalence regarding doing that thing, or one will go about doing that thing incorrectly. To eliminate the possibility of these, then the exercise of the intention, intending.
다 단단한도 꿀ung 가르고요. 다 꿀ung 개침보이나다 단단한도 다 람림을 먹는 지리요. 람림을 퇴선 것은 지리요. 그래서 다 지혜를 다 꿀ung 가르고래. 다 저거들에 다 kulung 가르지 버려 kulung 개치 보이나 kulung 가르지 다 버려 kulung 가르지 버려 그 kulung 가르지 버려 그 kulung 가르지 버려스 어이 저거들이 해서
when a refined intention is required as it is, when it is considered to be as critical as it is, and when in education, in training, in stages along the path to enlightenment, which involves study and contemplation and cultivation, and when these hinge upon intention, how do we think about intention then? How do we think about causal intention, temporal intention? What kinds of intentions are these?
이 이제 다 나와서 우리가 kulung다 공부 랍지 임바이나 배수는 전부 공부 랍지 임바이나 아니 다 참주고 생기 심바 인지미지 공유하레스 아니 공부 링지 임바이나 아니 미중고 삼베스 바스 미중고 삼베스 바스 아니 공부 타마지나 아니 치마 아니 직파게 다 예송의 내가 살바 텔레지 삼로지 탄다 삼로 다 투바지 오 텔레지 굴ung지 심바지 예바라 보고요 해서
Along the stages on the path to awakening, intention is meant in the following ways. The intention of the most sensitive intelligence of the individual with that greatest store of merit is the intention to conjoin every action with the awakening mind, bodhicitta. For the individual of average sensitivity, it is to conjoin with every action the mind of renunciation. And for the individual of most limited sensitivity, the intention required is merely for actions to be informed by that thought, which is the thought to avoid birth in unfortunate realms.
제가 다 가르치는 거라서 다 나도 한다 람림을 로좀 지도 라운다 신 현재 현재 동해다 차와 대화다 대화 지혜가 치도라 안에서 내 산지 주고 먼저 토부도 삼바지게 맞으나 안에 산지 주고 먼저 토베 귤을 더 토고 말해서
And why is it that the intention must be so in the context of traveling the path to awakening? It is for the reason that in order to dispel the pain of both myself and all others, the pain of all sentient beings, and in order to endow with well-being myself and all sentient beings, I must achieve the state of omniscient Buddhahood. This is the intention required. Without this intention, activities will not become cause for the achievement of the ground of Buddhahood.
뭐 이게 좀 삼바게 심바지 마데나 꿀웅디 좀 삼바 교이 꿀웅 좀 삼베 심바지 마조나 타르바토에 귤을 주고 말해서
If activities are not conjoined with a renunciatory mind, activities will not become cause for liberation from samsara.
나한테 치마 랑기 밖에 온도 밤에 치마 와다 디소다 그놈 너무 두부지면은 아니 치마 예순게 내가 타르바시 귤을 좋아하지 삼로 마다나 确了主嘛还是
And later on, for the individual of least sensitivity, wishing to achieve heavenly rebirth and the fortune of human rebirth, when we speak of this level of sensitivity, unless the intention of this individual is to avoid birth in hell realms, their activities cannot be dharmic.
나도 또 삼 이만이만게 수수비 지금 삼로 땅바 냠내가 삼로 땅아 이나 맞아 삼로 나 뺐다 치마 된 얘기 있어 그나 그리스로 가다 제 치마랑 된 얘기 삼바다면 텐투야 시작하고요 맞아 또 고미요 말와 애들 그 텐투야 하고요 아주 그 꿀은 뭔가 자자 그 슈치모 야제 야주 구주 세 디기 아니 지금 땀다 아니 또 그렇다 아니 지금 하게 되게 도달하잖아 삼로 거르게로 모두 치마 대화토야 뭐 치마 원도 밤에 고반 토야 되게 삼았다 잘하게 이제 유유로 와 제가 매주 잡아 아니 아주 그 내가 지겨 봐가 쉬어를 또 두고요 말 쉬어를 좀 하고 이제 이걸 두고요 세단 얘가 저요 계속
Ordinarily, in our own thought processes on any given day, the tendency will certainly be to give no thought at all to subsequent lives whatsoever. Simply no thought is given to it. Or if any is given to it, consideration of subsequent lives will amount to no more than at most something like 10%, while the rest, 90% and more, will be continued preoccupation with one's own reputation and fame, and food and lodging, and this alone. And unless at the very minimum there is some consideration of future prospects, of heavenly rebirth, birth as a human being, unless this at a minimum is present, there is no dharma. Where there is no dharma, activities will be non-virtuous. So it is very dangerous.
나 이제 잡아 먼저 산다다 그 공부 랍 그런 집주기가 해서 공부 랍 그런 집주도 잡아다 전주 생기 심바 생기 그런 집주기가 해서 그다음에 그런 집주도 이나 아니 달 람림 그런 집다 참아서 해서
The refined intention, which is relevant to us, is the refined intention of the individual with the greatest sensitivity. That intention is to conjoin every action with the mind awakening, bodhicitta. And this is absolutely necessary. And when this mind, bodhicitta, is conjoined in any action, then that which is required for training in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment is present for us.
제가 전주 sim 있으면 그런 것들이 다 뒤에 교육군도 소위 랍사임바 그다음 교육군도 인도다 맞다 수속이 다 최다나 뺐다나 그들 차샤위나 아무 최니시 지거를 최니시 제가 되게 가가 딱 최년바 최 삼바 고모 가르치 유나야 대 탐지 아니 전주 그 생기 심바 생기 소고 여러와 그래서 전주 심이 있으면 뭐 왔다 딱 꾸는디 얘기 내 자와 되게 제가 되게 가가 아니 나 랑이 아니 세대기 또그 담숨 전달라 많이 봐 랑이 대어도 배치도 많이 봐 시행 큰에 치도 시행 랑을 시행 간다 랑을 간다 단다 또 뭐라고 섬 땅단 지어와 랑라 아니 대화 보아다 동에 메디바다 아니 바게 찍다 삼로 망고저로 디 삼로 되게 찹들 디 파샤 디 찹들 신야샤 아니 신데라 답에 대화 되고 동에 메디바 디버 디 동에 배 다들 차로 대화 다다 토바 어 데데지 치고 두 삼박 아니 삼박으로 삼보저로 어 데데지 심바지 좋은구나 아니 자기를 생기 심바세 어 데데지 삼박으로 해서
The refined intention that conjoins the awakening mind with every action is the causal intention. I described the causal intention, didn't I? And so here in Dharma, at this particular moment, for instance, in an exchange in the Dharma, when we listen and contemplate and cultivate the mind awakening, the intention fit for this moment is to conjoin our every action with the awakening mind, bodhicitta. And when usually we think solely of ourselves, of what we do and the karmas that we accumulate, and when we think especially of ourselves so that we may gain fame, food, and lodging, when this is our self-interested preoccupation invariably, and when we are motivated to find for ourselves well-being and avoid for ourselves pain, at this moment, we will forget that and replace that with the sensitivity to others so that they may, right now, find their well-being, so they may now be parted from their pains. And this mind awakening, bodhicitta, is the intention suited for this moment.
아니 담보 다시 냠았어. 다시 냠을 보는 꿀ung 죄다. 아니 다래 다시 제외 보는 꿀ung 죄야. 아니 다래 신 제버지를 보는 꿀ung 죄야. 그래서 뭐 무슨 그래서
In the spiritual practice of the great Kadampa adepts involved in their practice was to equalize self and other, and then to make an exchange between self and others, and then finally to cherish others more than themselves.
나 꿀ung 죄다 되지. 아니 꿀ung 죄 맞잖아. 아니 그 그게 자와들이 늘 두고 매봐. 시대에 공부 시험에 자와들이 늘 두고 말. 꿀ung들이 심바이나 꿀ung 죄바이나 삼고 땅 수주고 꿀ung들 죄바이나 아니 자와들이 늘 두고요. 제가 이리 다 예버도 꿀ung 죄고 요래서.
This then is the way to refine an intention. When an intention is not refined in this way, then the activity itself will not become the cause for the realization of the project intended. No such intention, no cause for the achievement of the objective. And so then, to refine the intention in this way allows any activity to become the cause for the realization intended.
꿀ung들이 다 자주 sem지 sem바스는 간다다 단다 도도도 파 자주 sem코라게 친이 토네 대신견 쉬바이나 sem제 탐제 도베 산지지고 산이 고버차 디치돌라 아니 라라데 톱투야 미바지 고도 미바지 톱에서 산지지고 만 톱고도 디치돌에 sem제 탐제 대화로 고베시도 산지지고 만 톱을 차오 냐베다 켈레 아니 켈레 바다 켈레마 때랑이 냠슬랑 거 어디다 갈래 빌라 자주 셈세 되게 꿀 되게 셈주나 자주 셈지 꿀 셈바스 딜레지 상담투나 야부요 해서
The intention that is intention to conjoin every action with the awakening mind, bodhicitta. This describes, in short, what may be defined as bodhicitta, that is, the intention to place all sentient life on the Buddha ground, and in order to develop the capacity to place every sentient being on the Buddha ground, one must themselves first achieve Buddhahood for the capacity to deliver sentient beings to Buddha ground. Therefore, I myself am committed to achieving awakening to this end. This commitment and promise that then informs an actualized practice is what is meant in the intention that is bodhicitta conjoined to every action. And if you are able to think along these lines, that would be very excellent.
사고롱도 단다 그도 죠 사고롱 단단하도 치 단단하도 다 자주 셈 나츠 라면 취니시 지기 여바 일을 취니시 제베 그 배연디 아니 델리지 귤러도 샤제 고가토로 귤러서 또 쳐고 자유 치돌라 나 고kulung도 죠 사람 얘기 취니시 제바디 아니 베스 방에다 많이 집에다 아주 세디게 나타나 하나 가지 시쇼랑 마치기로 와 마디기 집에게 심제 탐제 아니 배 대화도 대마 지기 대치도 이 삼바치 꿀웅들에서 새도 세다고 해서 맞죠 죄수들 아다셈 오늘 많이 나냐 셈게 쇠 죄마 체니고 아니 죄마 찍고 이고 숨고 아니 죄마 많이 맞잖아 죄마 많이 맞잖아 오늘 잡으러 와 근데 또 집을 잘 해서
The intention that would be refined in this way, refined such that bodhicitta becomes conjoined to every activity, is the intention appropriate in an exchange in dharma around the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, so that the exchange in dharma about the given text might result in becoming very cause for the achievement of awakening Buddhahood, so that this activity does indeed become cause for the achievement of Buddhahood. We would refine our intention just so, and we would do so furthermore, recognizing the very kindness of our mother of this lifetime, who is and resembles all mother sentient beings. It would be done for their welfare. This intention would be planted as a seed. And whereas at first this mind will not be authentic, it may be simulated, so that after repeated simulation, it grows increasingly authentic to the point where it becomes real.
꿀웅들이 선배이나 아니 산지 고모토를 빌려 주고요. 주고유도 다 꿀웅들 또 전부 차. 제가 뒤에도 맞다. 되게 꿀웅 책이 하게 좋아들라. 뭐마 사 시참에게 저 가리는 지고 다다 사 심박이 저 가리는 지고 뭐발 사버 유럽이 좋아요 가리치네요. 그래서 강가에 꿀음부터 하는 배산지 고마도 뒤로 더 쇼스 또 조직스 하는 게 꿀음 제 초기 열어서 그래서
But so what's that? Do check that the kunon digi wangi and the leg anga
맞다.
sangi ki sa
좀 사봐.
lo.
그 뭐발 되게 삼을 사봐 주바. 단다 제시마. 엄마 제 사줘 가갈. 아니 이게 겨와 가르치고 뭐발 가르치기 유나자. 단다 가르치기 제시하고 유나자. 엄마 제 사와 가가. 아니 집에 신 심제 탐제 대화로 걸으시도 이 산지 고마 걸으시도 이 삼나. 아니 그런 데 장주성 사바 살로 와.
Bodhicitta conjoined to every action becomes the very cause for achievement of Buddhahood. And when bodhicitta is conjoined indeed to every action, then that underlying intention has become an extraordinarily powerful force. It is an extraordinarily powerful force that transforms every activity of all three times, whether activities of the past or occurring in the present or activities to come in the future. It transforms all of those to very causes for achieving Buddhahood. And this is bodhicitta conjoined to every action. This is the intention here.
다 무시 듣고론데 야고 유나 아니 다 제니바 가리었으나 무시디 야고 나와요. 듣고론데 야고 숙침부 야고 매나 무시 자와데 야고 유나 라와치라 요마 춘주 차다. 그래서 이제 개치지 가려서는 꿀ung 야고 유바이나 꿀ung 딜라 때니 아니 자오 무시디 뒤다고 치마 라와치부 자이가 그래서
Which leads to the second point, which is where the intention is sound, then there truly is hope for the actualization of that intention. But where the intention is not indeed sound, then there is no real hope, or only minimal hope that there will be found any actualization of it. So where the intention is sound, then we have good reason to expect the actualization of that intention.
뭐야 무시디 오늘 타는 게 제인다 그 수sem나 그 같은 그 좋아했게 그 아마 중수다 야고 중수다 삼거게 용야디 꿀ung들 시다 저 친구요. 꿀ung디 야고 용도 무시디라 배드네스다 이런 거 용거레스 꿀ung디 장마시라면은 무시가들 가서 제외 있나야 제조대한 시라는 이번 매jo래라 야고 요약하고 그래서
Then from the intention, that later moment when one can review what one has done with great satisfaction and acknowledge this has been actualized. This is a pure event that happened. It's an extraordinary event that happened. That moment where all of that can be acknowledged depends very much upon the intention at the outset. With the sound intention at the outset, there will be an actualization of that intention, whatever the case may be, whatever the activity it is. Without the intention, for one, there will be little force in the actualization of it. And furthermore, there won't be any very great likelihood of it being fully realized.
뭐야 무시 자루가 셈 보면이나 다 동반이 보고 있네다 안에 수족을 보겠다 보면 셈 띵이지 미과 템보 용야 미과 세부 용야 미과라 마르체 용야 미국 말라와 대조 용야 간가 다 꿀문들 저 파상 친구요 꿀문 친구 요바이나 무시가도라 땡에지 마요 땡에지 세부 용야 어따르주 간가 제발 친구요 그래서
So then when the actualization is in developing bodhicitta, or the actualization is in meditation in emptiness, whatever the case may be, when the actual event is sustaining samadhi, so that that samadhi is clear and it is stable and it is of great intensity, these actual events of bodhicitta, meditating in emptiness, clear samadhi that is unmoving, these all depend upon the sound intention.
무시디 가도다 다 무시 가나도 다 까마 그 까마 치베 쟤는 주저지 이마치 그래 되게 요바이네 다고 셈 마요 와세 미걸 내고 거와 어디 용야도 간가야 다 꿀lun가 시다 때 침보래 꿀lun구 떡이 뭐 대자고야 되는 줄에서 꿀lun도 되게 뭐 이마다 꿀lun 야고예나 무시 야고 용구 요바 어디게 돼 다시 잘 해서
And then the actual event, the actual activity, whether it's a minute's activity, an hour's activity, or a day-long activity, it will be continuously successful in strong dependence upon the intention for it to be so. Thus, the significance of the intention. And from an authentic intention, then the success in the actualization follows.
아니 다 뭐지 다 되게 제가 뭐 그런 저 뭐지 제가 죽되면은 야 내가 그 상부 차리 말해 아니 내가 거기 또 치러 따야 또뭐 많이 한번 제야 주간가로 죽되기다 해서
So the explanation then of the actual event is just that, and it is followed by the conclusion. And the conclusion is the ensuring of completion so that the event's force might be further heightened so that it might be preserved too. This by the force of the conclusion.
뭐 제가 죽들라 민칼라는 모아서 다 정보 좋아야 제자를 다 꿀lun 전주선 있으면 제자를 무시 셈버 되게 지금 오게 전주선 공부 동의 공부 제자로 와. 다 제자와 대 육모하기 셈버 중모하기 맞나 코 삼성 라도 삼성 춘주차도 매버 차도 제가 그 매버 맞차와 마마라와 공도 배워 제디 죽들이 치고 해서
The action in conclusion is known as the dedication. The dedication, which follows the preparation that has been made, and then the refinement of the intention in accordance with bodhicitta that would be conjoined to any activity, which has informed then the actual activity of stabilized samadhi, of bodhicitta, of meditation in emptiness, all of which have been completed. And all of these that have been completed then by the dedication are again repossessed so that their force is not lost, so that it doesn't ever attenuate, so that it doesn't vanish, but instead is heightened again and again.
거의 다 리스트 창소나 아니 다 이 공부 시험나 신이지다 교체유나 다 교어디 또 전부세 다 교어 또 전부 제유 삼반나신 전부 차야 다 리시드 창고를 해서
These are the four components of a virtuous action. These four, as I have described now. And for a virtuous action to be indeed a forceful, virtuous action, these four would be present and complete, and then one can say fairly, this that I did is significant and virtuous.
저와 고노시 죽시기 참에 개와치 예바이나 개와 또 첨부레스 좀 다디나네 그러나 단단한들 배차샤베나 나는 취치 니시 제바 이 개와디 때 개와디를 또다 니시 제바 뭐니시 치기 인상보 고농디체 아 고농디 예단 뭐시 퇴박이 야고시 예 얘네 삼박이 맞이버시 땡이 봐 슈처다 아니 하게 셈이다 꼭 바게 고미하게 자주고 셈도 좀 제일 나고시 봄 아니 봄사도 이게 배들이 고미하라 산데 가고 뭐하지 오 된지 제바 이나 아니 다고 배마시고 개와도 또 첨부 아니 고다 간다 라기 개와 가르쳐봐 나시 또 첨부지 차와 찍제 아니 이바들라 다 가르치그래서나 다나서 드링디 제다들 다 꿀웅 치주센도 꿀웅 치주지 해치버려서 이거 같아요. 그러다 꿀웅 가도이네 꿀웅 찌셔봐 내가 랑이 내가 고추고 예외나 배나 도바지 최니도 다나가 최니시 저 자로 아니야 뭐 놀람도 도바지 있나요? 도바지 있어서 뭐 꿀웅 찌어요. 아니 수수루야 저걸 집어도 당기 삼나야 꿀웅도 저걸 수준 또는 발진 쪽에 냐면 가르치는 걸로 꿀웅도 이해나 아니 그 냐면 자단 상보하고 차려로 와 그다음 꿀웅도 개첨을 해서
So then these four components of the preliminary, the refined intention, the actualization, and the dedication and conclusion would be complete. When these four are complete, the virtuous activity is indeed forceful. And here, for instance, in the exchange of dharma, just now, the virtue accumulated in the exchange is accumulated as it has been, determined by the intention at the outset, which was to engage in the exchange of dharma. This intention then made stable a mind in its studies, recalling the lessons in the study with meditative stability. Meanwhile, this very activity remained conjoined to bodhicitta, and then in review, one can well say, I did cultivate this mind in this way, in this activity, and in this way, the virtuous activity is forceful. Here is an instance of our exchange in this lecture, the success and force of which depends upon the intention. But hereafter now, with this as merely illustrative, apply the very same four components to every activity that you undertake. Here we have in our exchange fulfilled these four, but then you hereafter in everything you do in your prayers and whatever other activities you engage in, giving charitably to others, and however else you perfect the 6 paramitas, in every case, make those activities complete with these 4 components.
오예 다 자기는 가는 때에 사지기 개와다 삼매기 개와 개벌시도 다 사지기 개와디 어 간다 사지기 개와디기 내가 제부 개와 핑계래대 이나양 거기 간다면 배 제가 동행을 교주를 해 삼매 대와디 오늘 그래요 말에 꼭 겨워 사바디 오늘 여기 말에 꼭 가디는 겨워네 그래서 딱 어디 겨워 차야라 또 그놈도 겨워 해서
Earlier, I distinguished between the contaminated virtuous karma and the uncontaminated virtuous karma, and pointed out that the contaminated virtuous karma is good for projecting one into a future experience of a temporary contentment and well-being, but that state of well-being will not be long-lasting, but will inevitably change. Whereas the uncontaminated virtuous karma is stable and unchanging, and the realization of its result depends very strongly upon the intention.
뭐야 제단데 인도도 사제 사벨레 사제 내 겨워 사바 되게 당한다 밀루 베스 거기서 당한 거라 이거 가는 밀루토 같아요 남시 있잖아요 나봐 밀루디 파도 제도 그래 제니 밀루치 미 겨울에 보러 겨울에 뭐 치도 밀루디 더도와 저는 간다 마세도 아마세도 다 지나진 거라도 계획도 비추게 돼 싸게 유노로 조인 바이나야 납시 꼭 수용거리 돼 있는 납시 바세도 아니 직하게 랑게 싸게 있는 배다 세도 우리가 좀 마고 저리는 공샤와 있는 이마지 마흥도야 아니 다 안다를 파게 수수다 맞아 밀루 토비 채우는 랑게 파마 체계에 괜히 제 체계를 더 체계를 채우면 타마야 강가 제도도 아무튼 체계가 배 이제 먼저 저거 요지 망고 정글에 이내 타마야 제도도 아무도 겨울에는 숨보세라는 루이드 배 하장 따서부터 다고 얘기했더니 이만치 아니 간에 치료도 제가 그 사직이 내생이 먼저 먼저 주어면 무슨 동의지 뭘 봐. 교류는 지나 그 사직이 내스나 그래서 너무 참
Accumulated contaminated virtuous karmas have resulted for us, for instance, now in birth as human beings. This, as example and illustration, is the easiest to understand, that the present human body is had by the force of contaminated virtuous karmas. And the human life and the human body, in the end, is lost to us. In the end, we die, are parted from this human body, and forced again into yet another birth. This is the inevitable loss of the human body and the exhaustion of whatever it is we've accumulated with it. Wealth, and whatever else it is we've accumulated in our lifetime, when we die, is entirely lost to us. Even if it were that we managed to heap together great wealth that resembled a mountain of wealth and success, this too in the end collapses and vanishes entirely. And all of our associations and friendships, our family life with parents, our friendships, we are all collected together, meeting with friends and family presently. And as we continue to live, we take great care to continue to protect and preserve our lives, to preserve our human lives. But Nevertheless, and inevitably, in the end, this all changes and all is lost. And it is so because these are consequences of contaminated virtuous karmas.
That's how make lay na for the maseyo ma ya pedro ma the maseyo ma kana si ba or the la the short the yo ma sa make lay sim sama ko ji ko ka du ne ya be jo ji wo je mi ji wo je mi re ji wo je ne ko ya ye pedro res na ta ma sa make lay sa ya ko tu ko re so de sha so
Whereas uncontaminated virtuous karmas only ever increase. There is never any exhausting uncontaminated virtuous karmas. They are inexhaustible. They can never be lost. And throughout lifetimes, and then again, generations, no matter the time, they are only preserved and only ever increased. And so for that reason, we begin now to strive in the accumulation of uncontaminated virtuous karmas, and we will conclude here.
If
there are any doubts now in a matter of philosophical dialectic, raise those doubts. Now, if you've got any questions, let's hear them. But if you don't, then we can conclude with a very deliberate closing prayer.
Question? Uh, uh, the contaminated virtuous karma. And did you say that when our body dies, that karma will disappear too? I thought any of the karma will continue.
사실 내 송으로 따드네 아니 치퍼 얘기 두 봤네 디안 사실 내 디안 조로 그래 디안 디 잡을 거서 디르베
사실 레드로 이것도 다가 대만 사실 요거 요레스 사실 레드도 한번 대화 두 개를 줄을 뚫네 양 동해를 누구도 제가 그 줄로 그래 안 들래 다 치프로도 잠바 아 사직 사버 레 망체 조두거 이제 가지 하기로 내 지금 하기로 내 하고 이거 이내 그 사직 레도 때문에 사메 레드는 꼭 가지네 봐 팀프라요 말이야 폐 어디 제발 요래서
tadi le le zeme le pelsio le chusum roa ra de
그것도
말에
맞다 딱
de
간다
le drup
코스 계속 때들도 내기서 근데 치료도 잠만도 답변은 아주 내 미디어로 찾아보면 레디 파 다음에는 심을 기록으로 와 이나시 사직이 레디야 파 심을 배틀 세디스 가르도 그래 가르도 말다 이내 그 유어도 쓰리래 유어 사직이래 유어도 아이가 꼭 유어도 유어도 이내 세디 제부제부도 류디 제부제부도 레디 그만 냠도 제부자고 되게 말해서
사제기 le sarkyo tenzogi wangi ani jebudi min ani yongroa ani minne memba di gyoro dro chokore
말 매물 줘도 고민 사도 사제 레디 도도 봐도 배는 거 밀릴래 뭐 말았지 왜 이걸 문제지 영화 소스는 됐어도 이걸 문제도 안 톱스나 고 사제 레디 조사로 와 조사 다 정말 밀리톱 보셔도 밀리톱 사서나 사제 레디 조사 다 사메 레디나 그래 좋아요 말해서 소사
그래서 소부터 the contaminated virtuous karmas do not remain, they change when they have as consequence a given result. With the realization of that result, the contaminated virtuous karma is exhausted. So for the most part, in a lifetime that is as it is a human lifetime, as it is a human lifetime, it is the result of a contaminated virtuous karma. With the very realization of the human life, that contaminated virtuous karma is exhausted. It isn't stable, it cannot be long-lasting. So that at death, then, many of these accumulated virtuous karmas have been exhausted by the realization of their result. There are some contaminated virtuous karmas that may pass through a transmigration, but the majority do not. And so it resembles the case where you pray to become wealthy and become wealthy. And then the force of the prayer then is lost in its realization. And if you prayed for a human rebirth and were reborn a human being, then the force of that particular prayer is in the realization exhausted.
거기 사직이 레디도 그런 게 살 찍고 레디 제부도 좀 사나 요거는 제부 부여야 되게 해요 말 다음에 레를 거요 이제 해봐요 말 하는데 제부지 고무줄이 또 돼야 되는 거 제가 다음에 레도 없이 그래서
For any contaminated virtuous karma, once, any single time, its respective result has been realized, it cannot again be re-realized. That means it occurs once and afterwards is exhausted. but it isn't the case for uncontaminated virtuous karmas that they ripen but once. Theirs is a continuous and unending consequence.
Thank you so much, Geshe-la. Just briefly, if you could give some examples of contaminated virtuous karmas. In my mind, I'm considering them things like offering food to the poor where it's contaminated with both the desire for the poor to be well fed, that's good, but then also a little bit mixed in, like, I want people to know that I did that, donating so that your name ends up on a plaque somewhere where people can see. Is that contaminated virtuous karma? Just some examples of contaminated would be helpful. Thank you.
ane saksi legi pe kashi ane jok na rona pena inge goyala ane jemba tang di zambala khate ane rewa gyabne ra nge jemba tang ne ane mingchen bo cha yong samo di korna dene saksi le yang mena te chik kare hle de yore lamna ane jemba tang ne ane joko gyap pe rewa yo ra ane paro ko mi de ya rewa gyabne ra ta chitan de jimba tangne ani mingchenbo chawala rewa gyabne ta chigile tat peka she ani kodewe gi peka she ani sungnanda. Your own examples are quite good.
rangi dedu de jawa meba, rangi rawa meba, peda nga zo jimba tanga to chela shashawe na, jimba tanga de, jimba tanga ni, ani chik ranga pake chik dami yung na jawa na, ranga zo keben yung na tende rawa meba. Ani cho nipa tila, ani chik tab haru polo, nega gu pimbe shito mahi bata, rangi jimba tanga tila tene, ani koki, nega gu tuki sewa ma se, ani kola ya kanda ta, chibegi. 제부들을 된 별로 좀 타이어 영화 이제 삼모타도와 어디서 그러다 사제기 나도 그래서 사제기 개원한 그거를 했어.
Your example is a good example. The important point must be that the action is not at all motivated by personal investment, that there be no connection at all with one's own personal pursuit of satisfaction and well-being, that in an act of generosity, there be no wish for acknowledgement or to find personal advantage, that in an instance of generosity. A second point regarding an instance of generosity, it would be a contaminated virtuous karma of charitable giving if the objective were merely to temporarily assist that person through the generosity. For that, if the motivation were to only dispel temporarily the pain experienced by that person, it would be contaminated. But if the intention were to bring about, through the instance of generosity, the full abundance of resources for that person, that would make for an uncontaminated virtuous karma.
표현도 찍버치게 하지 순간도 찍버치게 하면서 찍버치게 표유바이나야 아니 사직이 꾸는 건 표하다 사면이 꾸는 건 표현이 뭐지 어떤 주체를 해서
And for this very same resemblant meaning, in the same sense, giving a single flower one person may give the very same single flower and another only a single flower, all giving just one flower. But in giving a flower, in one case will be an instance of contaminated virtuous karma, determined by the intention. Yet giving the same, merely one flower, another may be engaged in a virtuous karma that is uncontaminated, and the difference between the two is significant.
강에 랑게다 지바탄 쇼바 퓨 가리체바 이나디 사메 퓨르 로투브레스 다 자주 쓴지 마심바게 네 꾸룽 심바 가리스미 요바이나야 사지 꾸룽 심바 코나 바코데 오세 사마타나 디툰데 요레스.
But in short, just to make it very accessible, wherever bodhicitta is conjoined in the action of generous giving, making offerings, whatever the case, the virtue is an uncontaminated virtue. Wherever bodhicitta is not yet conjoined in the action, it is yet contaminated virtuous karma. So put concisely, that's the point. Are there any others? And then, was that clear?
Always in the same line of thinking, or the answers that we give in question answers. Even if I am not clear about my intentions, even if I'm not, even if in the end I will offer contaminated karma, it still may be true that whoever I even if my virtue is not pure or entirely clear, there's still benefit received as a result of the effort. Is that not true? Something is gained at least by the recipient of the offering, if not myself at all.
Tadni ti sama tang sujet ki tiwa shua dan ane lindep nawa de dan ane tuen chene ane ta khete nga yinba yina ane gewa dan mi gewe ki khebar de tata ane sak chubo dinde ane she de me na yang jimba tang ne nge jimba tang we gewa de sakche ki gewa re te parobo me la khepsang ti yang ragre de la khepar short droge marwa tati nge ge ngarang gi gewa di sa me gi gewa ane dinde sa me na yang parobo me de la ane khepsang dang pinto dinde yore wa jezan di sunju gi wangi parobo me de la ane khepsang top droge wa nimbapo de la khepsang yore wa sakche gi le yenaya parobo
Yoro, the Shanna Deva Yoro, Penango, Tajik Lel, the Shanna Deva Chuna Yoro, Rana Deva Chuna Yoga, that Sable, that is Shem water. Then another cannot that sketch the Yang George, you the Saji, George, I make your Marisha sing it again, it is possible last 6 months.
That sure, it's true that from a contaminated virtuous karma, one may themselves find some satisfaction and another two may gain from it. That goes without saying. That's of course and certainly the case. Leave that aside. And for me, what I detect mostly is, well, albeit my actions yet aren't uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
링버도 사교dik 사지 개와이든 드링디 파스타 사메 개와 사로 시스니라가 예수.
And if that's so, then if up to this moment your virtues have been contaminated virtuous karmas, let it be that from this moment forward they become uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
드링나도 최시에 최니 시지에 된다야 뭐 차오래서.
And should that happen, then this moment of dharma exchange has realized its purpose.
다 사메기 개와 되기 아니 제부터 세바 메바래. 사지기 개와 그때고 세바 여바래. 그래서 개발 심벌을 해서.
And that's because the uncontaminated virtuous karma's result remains evermore inexhaustible, whereas the contaminated virtuous karma's result will be eventually exhausted.
다들 먼저 말하는 거로 물론 드려서 막 뭐게 다들 말하면 된다. 레버 지가 제마다 꾸도 상보되는 대신 됐어. 말은 누구도 왔다. 잡에 보고다 꾸도 상보고 말은 잡아나시 나양 그냥시 자기 이해스는 말은 제기도 왔어. 어디 잡고야 된다지. 나 장주 센지 심바 말은 잡 투야 치도 어디 말은 누구야 해서.
In a moment, we will conclude with closing prayers, won't we? And when we do, we will recite these very verses, just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra do realize things as they are. Also, I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. And meant here is that, just as Manjushri and Samantabhadra conjoined every activity with their bodhicitta, so will I, to make them uncontaminated virtuous karmas.
나는 꿀릉부터는 죄여나 야보라 꿀릉부터는 죄면나야 아니 뭐 지도 장주 선바도 저거 지들 거 하나씩 마야 그게 뭐 투어쇼 뭐 규지 있으면 말은 제도 그다음에 그 개와 지게 되게 장주 선비 심벌 요하야 된다 뭐 지게 그래서
And if already from the outset the intention was refined already in this way, then that is excellent. If it has not yet been refined in this way, that is treated in the verses themselves, so that the virtuous actions become, by virtue of the force of Samantabhadra and Manjushri, just as they did, conjoined with the awakening mind, bodhicitta.
that's the what's 말해
So
말하면 되잖아
should we recite closing prayers then?
Lamrim said to him, I want to session on that's not telling on the church. She chedi and that ran chedi rotuya. 니만찌기 고수를 좁아 갈리지 제도에는 이게 계획 내사야. 계획 내사와 대양 아니 그 사명이 원래 루투야. 어디 리즈는 최시에 봐서도 최시 시에봐 년백이 계획 둘을 때네 아니 라기 둘을 레 미디어 가져이나 다 들어와 레 계획 초 패투야. 아니 딜을 때네 아니 지금 하나도 라기 삼들 찾아 루투야. 지금 예매 디지 찾아 수를 삼아나지 루투야 들려 영화 말은 치고 자고 해서
We didn't get into the actual text, the great treatise, today. We remained in our consideration of what are preliminary remarks to the treatise, in order that what we do actually, physically, verbally, mentally, whatever we do actually, so that those actions might authentically become dharma. so that we might actually accumulate virtues. And furthermore, that our virtues might be transformed into uncontaminated virtuous karmas, so that through these remarks we might, in an exchange in dharma and in the virtue accumulated through the exchange, purify non-virtues and make virtues bring about the benefits that follow from all virtues. And so that here in our closing prayers, we might realize our hopes, whatever they are, and live long lives and be well. Lome mare gi jong wa yi nam re ge we wang pu ne gi derma sumbe zera kundu ya jambe yang ge se we je zum ne tembe rimba kunzang lam gi jo ni ne jo be ge na ni je jo rangi ji jin to be lam gi ne shu ra se we jang we tab ge Rove yige mba seje ne gewe temba yunding zingirich. Temba rinche choge matyabam kyabgyan yambar gyube chode ne. Yingje chenpo yira gyobayi pende tede sewar jebar sho. Seje gewe mekyon chebe le ju janju lamgi rinpe gyam. Hadu nangi yila bedejin, gewe zeba rindu gyongirji. Lamzan rube dungin rujijin, gege seji medan mimingun. Tera kundu gewe nabayi, namda jadan jabar ngirjirji. Lamzan rube jina sijuji, tujin rula tabati. Bude namge kadın rojeji, taji gyatso chugu gyabgürbeşi. Even from my two collections, vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life's mandrushi. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity, make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths, never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread over.
Dāgī jīnyē sābē jēwā dē, tēnā rōwā gōnlā
Kampendong, Chebara Chetsun Lozan Rapa Yi, Tembe Nimbo Rindu Seje Sho, Kanri Rave Korwe Chinkam De, Pendam Dewa Malu Joy, Chire Sewan Tenzin Gyaso Yi, Shabe Sede Baradu Tengyuru Chik, Jambe Bawo Jindare Kemba Kundu Zambo Deyan Deshinte, Teda Kungi Jesu Dalo Chir, Gewa Deda Tamche Rabdu, Tuzun Shepe Gewa Tamche Gir, Ngowa Kanla Chodu Ngapa De, Dagi kewe tawa digun yang Zambu chuji rabdu mawar gi Chanchu senchu rinpoche ma ke panam ke girchi Kewa nyapa meba yang Kone kondu bewa I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lozan Japa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful, generous, and Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Mantra Shri and Samantha Madhva do realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with a dedication praised as the best by the victorious those gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen rise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Thank you.